the outreach for the organization, and I'm going to start off sort of just very generally talking about immigration, and then we can get more specifics, and I hope we have sort of a discussion and not let it just be me talking all the time. So, Long Island Wins is a relatively new organization, and we were started by a bunch of the different immigration organization advocates on Long Island, places like the Workplace Project, Grayson, the Long Island Immigrant Alliance, Catholic Charities, a lot of people out there who are doing the direct services to the immigrant community. Well, they got together and they said, politicians and the media are always talking about immigration, and they're always doing so on a fairly negative tone. They're doing that because they believe that the crowds, the masses, are fairly also negative about immigration themselves, have negative views about immigrants and don't really want immigrants in their communities. Well, the founders of my organization said that can't possibly be true, let's put a poll out into the field. Lo and behold, it was the truth. Public opinion is overwhelmingly negative when you're talking about immigration. So thus our communications campaign was founded. So we do education to local community organizations, all in the hopes of sort of creating new advocates and putting out new positive media which talks about, practical ways that we can deal with immigration issues. The first thing that we did is a study that's sitting on the table right here. It's like Ian said, we try and put out the cold hard facts. How are immigrants, where are they settled on Long Island? Yeah, feel free to pass them around. Sure, I'll hold one for the camera. So, how are immigrants settling on Long Island and how are they impacting the local economy? It's not such, sexy information, but if you're going to talk about immigration, it's vital. Our studies have found conclusively that immigrants are positive economic forces on Long Island. Not only that, without new immigration to the island, we'd be experiencing a negative population growth. I'm sure you've all heard of the brain drain. Younger people are leaving Long Island, and immigrants are coming and replacing both, the workforce and just the general population. So I'll talk a little bit more about the study, but it really just shows how immigrants are revitalizing communities where people are leaving in droves. Let's think about Brentwood. What was Brentwood 20 years ago? What is it today? That's just one example. So, I want to talk a little bit about facts and figures. You can find all this again in the Adelphi study, which you should feel free to take. But the study has shown that immigrants are both contributing to the tax base and to their local communities. We're talking about $10.6 billion in total buying power. $10.6 billion to begin with is a little bit unfathomable for me. But if you think about $10.6 billion getting up and leaving the Long Island economy, we'd be in a far worse off place than we are even in this economic recession. So that's one important number. And then the other important number, which counters, a lot of the accusations that anti-immigrant folks will throw out there, is that immigrants are not contributing to the tax base. Well, our study, which is based on census data does not, document whether or not a person has legal status in the United States or not. So, based off of census data, immigrants are contributing a net benefit, which is what we were talking about a little earlier, that after, their expenses to the county, after their expenses in education, after the expenses in healthcare, after the expenses in corrections, immigrants are contributing over $1 billion to the tax base. Again, what if $1 billion got up and left the Long Island economy? It would be huge, not to mention, the fact that immigrants are workers, contributors in a lot of different ways. So, what we've seen is that there's been a really big change in the face of Long Island demographics. I said that without immigrants, we'd be losing a lot of people on Long Island, but since 1980, the immigrant population has more than doubled here on Long Island. Can anyone guess how many immigrants we have out here? Just throw out a guess.
500,000.
Damn, wow. Good one.
I was going to say 4.
We have just under 500,000 immigrants on Long Island, compared to 250,000 in 1980. That's 16% of the total Long Island population. That's a huge segment of the population was not born in this country. It's incredible. But what it means is that the face of Long Island is literally changing. It's browning because over half of the immigrants on Long Island are Latinos. So Long Island has had, this is sort of transitioning into the policy aspect of things. Long Island has had, a bit of trouble dealing with this change. Nassau County was the first